and getting very cross with each other. The one with the little tusks especially. He's got short tusk syndrome, clearly. This is fantastic. This is awesome. Look at them framed by that tree. I don't know what he thinks he's going to do to that. Be quite something if we can push that over. My theory will be completely blown out the water. How awesome is that shot? I don't know if you can hear them. Every so often they're rumbling. There's deep infrasonic rumbles that they make, but I don't think that you're going to hear them. Look at them. Thinking about showing off and pushing the tree over. You see, it would be an immense show of strength for that elephant to push the tree clean over, but that's much too big for a little bull like that. There they go again. Look at the dust. This is just too brilliant for words. Let's move a little bit forward. I just don't want to frighten them, the ones that are close by. I'm making too much noise. Well, maybe we can go around the other side there and watch those two bulls. I'm loath to drive through the middle of the herd just because I think it might unsettle them slightly. Ach, they're so relaxed now. Maybe we can do it. Remain in San Diego while we try and ease our way gently through this herd. You want to know if we're going to get more and more elephants from the Kruger, A, and B, will they show or demonstrate poor behavior or bad behavior? Ramey, I don't believe that they're going to show any bad behavior. I do think that we're going to get more here simply because there is water in the Sabi Sands where there isn't in many parts of the Kruger Park. And so, yes, I think the water that there is provided for the animals in the Sabi Sands will attract more elephants. I don't necessarily think that there's going to be too much of sort of poor behavior, if you like. But I guess the competition for food starts to hot up, maybe. Let's go and watch these bulls. The herd is very peacefully feeding down through the clearing. Let's go and watch these two young fellows have at each other. This is amazing to watch. And of course, all little animals will kind of be very wary of what's going on here. These guys start really having a go at each other. The elephants can often lose their tempers with other small animals and start to chase them around. So there are a couple of impala around here who will be watching quite carefully to see what happens. I think that that bull with the long tusks has been vanquished. I think he's nervous. I think the little tusked one has overcome him, which is interesting. Yes, there we go. This young bull is now chasing an impala. Here we go. And you're in Barbados. That sounds like a wonderful place to live, I must say. And you want to know how long the matriarch will tolerate these two young bulls within the herd as long as they fight like this. Not long at all. She won't put up with it, and I think you'll find that's probably, look at that. Isn't that amazing? It wouldn't surprise me if she told them to push off now. This is getting quite serious. There's no question who's the dominant here, though. You can hear their tusks crashing into each other, the dust exploding off the ground. So cool. Yeah, the long-tusked one is now a little nervous. He's been bashed. There are some impala getting out of the way behind them there. Sorry, Brian. There, they're now pushing a tree. How's that? And having a snack. Round 3 is over. Look at the light, how it's changed, how it's gone gold. The sun is slowly starting to sink. Now this youngster is saying to his mate, let's call one long tusk and one short tusk, and it'll be easier. Or let's just call one long and one short. Short is pushing on the tree in order to say to long, watch out, buddy, I'm coming for you. Yeah, and there we go. Impala scattering to the right-hand side. They'll just slowly leak down the road here. Here comes Long, he's coming out of the bush. There's a buffalo behind them even, you may have noticed. Come on, Wendy, don't stop. There he goes. He seems to be heading back towards Mummy. He wants to have a bit of comfort from the herd. Whereas Short has now decided that he is king. He's going to feed on a bit of Acacia exuvialis. He feels he deserves some delicious exuvialis thorns. And there's a little squirrel you may have seen just popping up the tree there. Now, Brian, in Philadelphia, you noticed an interesting thing. You noticed that both bulls became what you describe as aroused during the course of that interaction. And is that normal behavior, you say, and is it normal? Yes, it is. It happens with many animals out here. They get, I think that sort of flush of testosterone through the body creates that, well, I suppose you'd call it arousal. I'm not sure that that's the correct term. I'm not sure what the correct term is. But yes, I think it's totally normal. Buffalo do it, absolutely, when they fight. I've seen it often with buffalo. I'm not sure about any of the other animals because normally it's not quite as obvious as it is with an elephant. But it is entirely normal and often. I mean, we noticed it when this Short here was trying to mount Long. And that is also quite often very normal, where two animals will try and dominate each other, and the dominant one will try and mount the subdominant one. I've seen it with giraffe as well. So Brian in Philadelphia, yes, we're not really a sensitive subject. It was brutally obvious, wasn't it? But it absolutely is completely normal and happens with a number of species. Look, he's injured. You see on the edge of his nose there. So Viv, you want to know if they could break a tusk fighting? Yes, absolutely. I think they could break a tusk fighting. I think they'd have to fight quite a lot though, and I think it would have to be a really nasty smack to the tusk. But he's taken a tusk to the nose there. He's now smelling some dung and just watching us. It's all right, fella. You smell him, Brian? He's got kind of a different smell about him, doesn't he? I'm sure that's got to do... It's almost like a weak must smell. And I'm sure that's got to do with the amount of testosterone now coursing through his body. He may be coming into his first must, of course, which would make him smell like that. Must, for those of you who don't know, is an elephant's sort of time of mating. The enormous amounts of testosterone start coursing through their bodies, and that smell that you can smell drips from the penis sheath, and it's called green penis syndrome, actually, GPS. It's a green and smelly substance that in a big bull will lose them apparently more than 50 liters. That's 10 gallons of water a day. And still the rest of the herd is just kind of, I don't know, feeding across this clearing, browsing, doing a bit of grazing, and I think they're going to melt off down into the woodland here. They may decide to turn around and go and have a drink at some stage. Oh dear, Short is coming up to his mate again. Won't leave him alone. Here we go. Watch this. Oh, that's typical. See that? That's a greeting. He put his tongue, his trunk. He put his trunk into Long's mouth, and that's a very typical way of saying hello with elephants. That's what they do. So maybe the conflict is over. I'm sorry about the sun glare, everybody, but I can't get both of them in picture, I don't think, unless I... Oh, maybe I can sneak forward. Shall I try, Brian? I thought that was quite an artistic of me to stop there, Brian.
I also did.
You know, Kirsten disagreed profoundly. Oh, well.
No.
Some people are artists and some aren't, you know, Brian.
Yeah, not everyone's art is appreciated.
No, that's also true. We have approval for this picture, everyone.
Well done, Jay.
Thank you. And there, now we had a comment earlier, and I forget from whom, about the fact that they think the nutrition underneath the plants is that much better. And it absolutely is. You can see there that plant there, the dead knobthorn, has been housing some grass that has been protected from all other grazers except an elephant. No impala could be able to get in there and get that grass that's been growing safely underneath the knobthorn. So the elephant has simply pushed that knobthorn tree away and is now supping on the delicious green grass there. And I tell you, you can almost feel the relief and the enjoyment that they must get from eating green stuff like that when you look around and see how much brown there is. Yes, Bob, you're absolutely correct. You say, could we get misplaced aggression if we are close to battling elephants? Yes, definitely we could. Not young bulls like this. Young bulls like this don't worry me. If these were two titanic larger bulls, 6 tons each, say 30 years plus, I wouldn't be anywhere near this close to them. They would absolutely react to a vehicle this close to them. But these youngsters are just kind of messing around. But Barb, yes, completely. You would definitely tell that if there was two 40-year-old elephants with big tusks like that big thing that had Scott's mate, the big thing the other day, if he and another similar sized elephant were having a fight near us, no, we wouldn't be anywhere near them. So they're going to melt off into the woodland there. We'll just get one last look at the rest of the herd up here. And then I think we might try and head to the hyena den. What say you, Brian?
Sounds like a great idea.
Yes. Unless Jamie's there. If Jamie's there or wants to go there, then she can, of course. They're having at it again. Just see there. I think if Jamie's close by to the hyenas and she wants to go, then let her go. Otherwise, I will go in the next sort of 5 minutes or so. I'm obviously relaying this to Jamie via Kirsten. That's why it sounds like it does, really. It sounded so weird, I thought I better just explain it. Now this is the block where I thought the lions were, but I don't think that this is where they are now. But we'll listen out, we'll come back past here as night falls. Right, we're going to leave this absolutely brilliant, spectacular, awesome herd of elephants to head off into the sunset, and we're going to go off towards the hyena den, and as we do that, let's head back across to Jamie. Wasn't that just spectacular?
Sounds like James has had the most incredible time with that very special elephant herd. In the meantime, still no luck with the Nkumas. I don't know where they've gone. At this point, anybody's guess is as good as mine. But I have found some really beautiful Inyala in the stunning late afternoon light. A nice contrast between the female that we were looking at and now with this magnificent bull. Having a quick scratch. And this morning we were lucky enough to see 2 male Inyala doing their slow dance, where they sort of, all the fur along the top of their backs and underneath their tail stands up on end, making them look very big, and very fluffy and very pretty, in my opinion. And then they do that really, really slow walk, presenting another male with the side view of their bodies, making themselves look big and puffy, and doing a bit of an Inyala dance as a way of intimidating rivals. In this case, though, this bull has got nothing to worry about. Oh, actually, there is another male to the right of him. So he is around. There is competition. Though I think the gentleman... Oh, where did you come from, little male? You can just see he's starting to take on the coloration of an adult bull, but still a little bit lighter, like the female. And the horn's just starting to come through, so he hasn't fully reached his mature physical appearance, like a mixture between the male and the female. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There's one last straggler. That's a male too, believe it or not. A much younger male. Look, there's just the budding start of his horns beginning to grow. Look at that cool double stripe on his shoulder as well. So those horns are bones growing up from growth plates. Imagine if we had to grow a completely new set of bones. I know, of course, that as we grow up from children to adults, our bones lengthen and solidify at the growth points at the tops of them, or at the ends of them. We don't really grow brand new sets of bones in the same way that male antelope do. Shame, look, he's panting as well. He's also very hot. And with time, his fur will start to darken. And one last straggling female. And since all the animals are panting, including myself included, the Safari Dean was wondering, start that entire sentence again. Is there any other animal, or is there any animal that enjoys extreme heat? And Safari Dean, now that I've managed to get that question out, I'm just trying to think. There are certain types of bacteria which are called thermophilic bacteria. Thermophilic bacteria quite enjoy heat. That I suppose is an animal, if we're going to go down that route. And beyond that, I can't think. There's no specific, certainly no mammal out in this particular area that really enjoys the heated temperatures. All of them are adapted to cope with it in some way or another. So from the elephant with their big flapping ears, to animals moving in the shades, to the theory that zebra stripes have a thermoregulation ability, the theory that giraffe spots might work in the same way. Everything has an adaptation to be able to deal with it. Not all, some more efficient than others. And we'll move forward a little bit just to make sure we can duck under this branch. Let's see if we can capture these nyala in the last few rays of the sun. Here we go. Lovely little mixed herd here. Male paying a little bit of attention to the female. She looks pregnant to me. Not massively so, but definitely a more rounded belly than some of the others. High up on the list of some of the most attractive antelope. In fact, I think in terms of different antelope tribes, the spiral-horned antelope family, the bushbuck, the nyala, and the kudu, definitely win the most attractive family award, the most attractive antelope tribe. There you can see the color difference beautifully, and how much more white there is on the top of that male. Very, very striking antelope. Something that I always think about when I look at the nyala was that folklore story that Teresa told me about the idea behind, the explanation behind the white on kudu and nyala. And essentially the idea behind it was that their spindly legs were too thin for them to be able to stand up in the beginning. So their creator reached down and helped them up. And the white stripes and the white dots and the patterns on their face is, in theory, where the creator touched them in picking them up. And I don't know why, but that particular story I found incredibly touching. Because when you look at them, it does sort of, there are places that do look like fingerprints on them. A couple of spots on nyala. Nyala have stripes and spots. And kudu, in terms of telling the difference, kudu mainly have stripes, which brings me back to a question that I got asked yesterday about whether or not kudu always have 9 stripes. And now Rocky Knight was wondering about nyala, whether or not they always have 9 stripes. So now I feel obliged to have a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, Rocky Knight, they do not ever have just 9 stripes. Every nyala has a different stripe pattern. Some have definitely got more than others. This female, for example, I think probably has at least 11 or 12 running down her. Oh, that male's... Is it gone flat?
No, it's soft.
It's very soft.
Fall into your shirt.
No, it's still here. Well, he's just checking sound quality. Let me just see what this male's doing. It looked like he was thrashing a bush. Oh, he stopped now. He's going to walk behind. I think our best position is going to be to stay here. But yes, each individual Inyala identified by different stripe patterns if you wanted to go down that route. We had a couple of them living in the camp where I used to live before I started at Wild Earth. And Inyala are a very common garden antelope species. They habituate very quickly, and they like to come wandering through next to camps because the lawns almost inevitably get watered. We used to get herds of up to 18, 19 Inyala wandering across the lawn, and we got to know certain individuals over time. There was one called Lady J, had a backwards J stripe on her shoulder, and we watched her raise a successful number of lambs over the years. Woodland inhabitants. You can see why they're part of the spiral horn family, even in this young male. The horn's starting to develop that twist. I think he heard something. I'm just making sure that it's nothing scary. Again, like with kudu and giraffe as well, Inyala don't have any kind of set herd structure. He's got it. Is that a nick? No, it's not a nick out of his ear. They don't have any kind of set herd structure, so this male will be allowed to stay with these females, even though he has reached sexual maturity, and it's only really when a female comes into estrus that he might be driven away by an older bull. And I told the story this morning about the two males that were fighting physically in the garden, which you don't often get to see. It's not often you get to see Inyala physically come to blows. But they were fighting over a female that was clearly ready to mate, and while they were distracted, a male of about this size managed to sneak in round the corner and ended up being the male that got to mate with her. And we were all applauding him because it was such a fine example of brain before brawn. Managed to be highly successful. If I go forward a little bit, although he's just moved into some
Kudu.
No, kudu, barking.
No, it's coming to you now.
Oh, cool. Awesome. That would actually be lovely if he would decide to come through into the sighting and join us. That's what keeps attracting. You can see that female's head's shot up. That's what she's looking at. And she's going to keep a close eye on him, or her, until she works out that it's a kudu and not a threat. But really nice to have two members of the same family in the same sighting. Hopefully she keeps coming, and we can get a comparison of size. Now looking at the Inyala, milk teeth, and sorry, I'm talking mammal species, not something like a crocodile or a shark that continuously replaces teeth throughout its life. The reason that elephants are so specialized in that respect is the amount of feeding that they have to do for an animal that size. There's the kudu coming through. So as ruminants in general have to consume less food than an animal with a different digestive system because their digestive system is so much more effective. Oh, brilliant. Keep coming, kudu. You're going to get straight up to the Inyala and we'll have a beautiful size comparison. There you go. Awesome. Double the size, if not more so in terms of height. Not often that we get to see that. So Nyala, much smaller. Fortunately, she just took a slightly wrong trajectory there and went further into the block. So Safari Dean, elephants as hindgut fermenters, that means that their digestive system is fairly inefficient. Now, they excrete at least a third of what they eat, whereas with ruminants, they digest far less. So if we take two animals of about equal size, a zebra, which is a hindgut fermenter, and a wildebeest, which is not, they have to eat a wildebeest has to eat about half of what a zebra has to eat in order to get the same level of nutrients and to maintain the same body size. You increase that to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tons of animal. It needs to chew constantly and eat constantly in order to maintain it. And that's why elephants have evolved to replace those sets of teeth. Other animals just have their milk sets of teeth, and then they have their adult teeth after that. And then, as I said, crocodiles, very different example. But if we compare it to something like a hippo, hippos rely less on their teeth and more on their lips to draw food into their mouths. So even though they have a similar, if not exactly the same, but a similar digestive system to an elephant, they don't spend as much time chewing the grass as they do ripping it up with their lips. A little bit different. Nyala have moved on. I think so should we. I'm heading across to check on Buffelshoek Dam. And while I do that, Mr. Henry has made his way to one of our favorite spots on this reserve. So let's find out what's happening on the hyena then.
Well, she's not the only one whose favorite spot this is on the reserve. Unfortunately, our favorite spot, Jamie's and mine, is occupied only by one hyena at this stage, a lactating female, and she's got riptish ears, which makes me think it might be Madam, but she doesn't look big enough and she's got too much hair, so I don't think it's Madam. Anybody, any ideas who this is? I'm looking at her with my powerful binoculars, but I can't see. Now, the lack of activity here to me is interesting. I don't believe that they're going to be in this den for long due to its slightly less than salubrious neighborhood. No shade, obviously. I actually think that is a factor. There's no shade around here at all. And it's on a major game path. If you go straight up that kind of path through there, you'll eventually hit Sydney's Dam, which is not too far from here. And I think that they'll find that this is a rather disturbed area. And so I don't know how long they're going to be here. And I don't know who that female is, and I'm postulating in my mind, and because probably I'm 90% sure this is wrong, but this could well become a satellite den. I think it's normally a satellite den, but it might become a satellite den quite quickly, in which a female who hasn't got babies would come and, there's another one, in which a female who doesn't have babies might come and give birth. Who is this? Been lying in the mud all day. Looks like it might be pretty. Now, Pretty, of course, has got very pretty ears. See if she comes around or just calls her cub out. Totally silent, completely silent in her approach. Here she comes. So cool. It's not Pretty, she's got stuff missing from her ears. It's Corky, it's our old pal Corky, with the scars on the top of her head. Hello, Corks. She will be calling out D1 and D2. Let's see if they come out. She's been lying in mud all day. I don't blame her. It is, of course, very hot today. Still quite warm. I wouldn't put the temperature at much below 34 degrees Celsius. Now, don't go away. Her little little ones maybe in the other side of the den, of course. Just off to the left-hand side of your screen, a dove is calling. Prop, 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 prop. Lovely call for the end of the day. She looks like she may have seen something. I will try and move shortly. I just want to see what she's doing. See if she pops out the other side of the mound again. Maybe she'll just press on. No. Maybe not. Okay, I think what we should do is just move slightly. Oh, she's coming up back the other side, Brian. She's just over there. So while she's doing that, calling the cubs out, let me just move into a better position in case they do come out, which will give us a better view of her. There she is. Hello, Curious Cookie. I wonder if you're perhaps a new viewer. Curious Cookie, you want to know if they have padded paws. Curious Cookie, they have paws pretty much exactly the same as your dog or your cat. So if you've ever felt a domestic cat or a domestic dog, they've got the same kind of paws. Probably hard like a dog's, as opposed to soft like a little kitty cat's. But they've definitely got soft pads. We haven't come around the wrong side here. We'll forge ahead for now. There we go. She smelt something. She's looking both sides of the den. The other one is also now looking. Ignatius in Pretoria, very good question. How far, you say, was the dead aardvark from this den? You say not too far, probably, simply because it took so long for any hyena to get there. It is pretty far. It's probably about 7 kilometers away. Not quite that long. Maybe 4 kilometers as the crow flies. And so, I mean, they would have picked up the smell, but what would normally happen is males who are not centered on this den, you know, they'll kind of forage quite widely, would have eventually found it. Now, I have had an experience with a hyena on foot in that area, right around there, from probably this clan, where the hyena didn't really want to leave me alone. She was kind of watching me carefully, and so there definitely is a lot of hyena activity out there, and I know that the clan marking point, oh, look, here we go. Here come the little ones. The midden site or boundary marker is around there where that aardvark was. Sorry, I was totally distracted by the little things coming out. Oh, and the little January cub. And all is right with the world once again. Female, but I've just looked again and I'm not convinced that that's the case. Fascinating interactions here, and of course the only other matriarchal society that we find out here. the little ones playing now. And they're all marking with their little anal glands. They're all marking territory, doing their bit for the clan. And those, of course, are not Corky's youngsters. Now, Chief Keef, you want to know how big this clan is. Chief Keef, it's not actually that big. It's about 17 or so adults, as identified by the brilliant Djuma / Arathusa hyena group. And that's not particularly big. There's one of about 30 on Arathusa. But it is the most wonderful to watch how the social structure of this clan has unfolded over the last little while. We thought Corky was the matriarch for once. That's the one in front of you now, until we found them with what we now call Madam. I think that's a little female. Yeah, that's D1. I'm pretty sure she's a female. The way you tell, if you're perhaps wondering, is you've got to have a look at the fully extended penis or pseudo-penis, depending on which it is, and the males will have a pinched off end and the females not so much. So the easiest is to find an adult, basically, that you can compare. Now, I think there's one male and one female D cub. I think both the January cubs are male, and I think November might also be a male, but I might be completely wrong. This is wonderful. So interestingly, that hyena there, the adult who's looking after the January ones, who was clearly left here as a nursemaid, is not a mother as far as I'm aware. Yes, that is Madam. That can't be Madam though, is it? I think it is. Yeah, her ears are that ripped. It is Madam. That's the matriarch. That's why she's looking after those little ones. She's the most tolerant of all of them. You can hear the little squealing noises they're making. So cool. And there'll be lots of snoozing going on because it is just so hot. Tomorrow is getting even hotter, everybody. So bring your sunscreen on drive tomorrow, in the morning as well as the afternoon. And then after that, we should have a bit of precipitation. Apparently. Yeah, I think little November here, who we're looking at, that's the bigger one, the bigger cub that you can see there. I think he is a male. And that little January cub, as I look, actually could be a female. I don't know, I find it so difficult. I've only really started studying them since I came and started doing this job as a guide. You know, you'd spend kind of maybe 10, 20 minutes at the hyena den, and then you'd move on, and you didn't have the extended periods that we have with these animals like we do now. It's such a rare privilege to be able to just sit here and have a great time with them, study them, have such experience basically in the viewers who've seen so many hyenas, who can give you advice, say, well, think about this, think about that, what do you think about that one? Oh, but you remember the sighting on the 4th of March 2 years ago. And it's wonderful. Debbie, you want to know if you can tell their sex from birth? Yes, if you can get a good look at the penis or pseudo-penis, you can. But you really got to know what you're looking for. I mean, I'm still not sure that I'm correct about these sexes, about the genders of all these little cubs. Obviously, from birth, you're not going to see them because they only stick their heads out of the den after about a week or two. A week, actually, they'll come out. And completely unlike a leopard cub, of course, which cannot defend itself inside a den. So while these cubs are pretty helpless, they will go into the den site and be virtually unreachable for a predator. Whereas a leopard cub, of course, doesn't dig as a youngster, and it's only really safe once it can start to climb a tree. And that's why we're perfectly happy to view these things from the day we can see them. But with a leopard, we're a lot more cautious. Time for the evening suckle. You can see the light starting to fade. The sun has set. And as we watch the sun go down gently, let's head across to Jamie with some kudu.
Unfortunately, par for the course this afternoon, my kudu seem to be disappearing into some very dense bush. I'm just going to try and get another view of them. All right, girlies. Disappearing into the drainage line. There we go. There's definitely more than 9 stripes there. Just to continue on that subject. And she lifts up her tail, you can see the white flash. Disappearing off into the sunset. The light is extraordinary at this time of day. Okay. Let us continue on and see what else we can find. It's been one of those quiet afternoons, I think largely due to the heat as well. Most animals have been hiding out in the shade, resting and relaxing, and waiting for the cool of evening to fall. I'm going to make my way back across to where we were looking for those lions for the last few moments of for the last sort of half an hour of our sunset safari, and just see if they don't stir as it gets a bit cooler. If indeed they are still there, and that we didn't miss their tracks crossing out somewhere else. I don't think so though. I have scoured that area with a fine-tooth comb. I'm sure that they're lying down in the shade, just right in the middle of that block, as the Nkuhumas are often wont to do. As night starts to fall, you get a whole different style of guiding. It's right at that period just before we want to put our spotlight out, but having the headlights on is a really useful way of catching tracks in the fading light. Definitely a thirsty day. As I gulp down water, Wayne was wondering what the temperature was today. It's not our hottest day that we've had out on drive, but it's pretty close. It was 38 degrees, which is 99 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on where you are from. Definitely a very warm afternoon. Not quite warm enough for our cameras to start shutting down, but very, very close. As soon as we hit about 40 degrees, just over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it is time for, it's when the cameras start to give their temperature warning. Lovely male waterbuck. Actually seems quite dark in color. Now we can compare him to that fluffy little baby that we saw earlier. You can see what I mean about the difference in color. And those strange white rings around the rump.
Any updates?
I'm going to try and see if I can find any local legends about explanation behind the waterbuck's white rump. He's wandering across to a female. There you go, you can see the size difference. Nice comparison. Oh, let's stop and have a sniff. Is he going to phlegm and grimace? Oh, he's going to phlegm and grimace face. There we go. Perfect. Thank you, boy. Being very cooperative. So that lifted lip and scrunched up nose, that face that he was pulling there, that is known as a phlegm and grimace. And what it does, he's going to go again. She's cooperating very nicely. I wonder if she's not coming into estrus. No. You also notice that he licks his nose and then pulls his tongue back into his mouth. All mammals, she's not having any of it, she's gone now. Not interested. All mammals have what's known as the vomeronasal organ, or the organ of Jacobson, that sits at the roof of their mouth, and essentially that tastes like smell. So you can imagine it, they're tasting the smell, and it's far more advanced. We have a residual one, but we've essentially lost the function of it because we no longer rely as heavily as we used to on our sense of smell. But that's why he was drawing his lips up. What it does is it opens up the passage to that organ of Jacobson and just allows it to act with its full efficiency. And you'll see all animals do it, except for elephants. And elephants, instead of doing that, what they'll do is they'll sniff with their trunk and then put their trunk into their mouths and touch the organ with their trunks, because obviously they're not capable of pulling that particular face. Still, to me, the funniest animal is probably buffalo. I think they look hilarious when they do it, but all of the animals pull that hilarious face when they are sniffing and using that organ of Jacobson. And as we continue back to where I think the lions were, let's pop back over and jump on the back of James's vehicle.
I would like you to all please do a count of the animals that you have seen today. You just had waterbuck, of course. You've had nyala and kudu with Jamie. We had buffalo to start with. We had zebra. We had an elephant. We had many elephants. We've had hyena. We've had impala. We've had... what have we not had? That's about all we've had. But I mean, what an incredible array of diverse animals that we've had during the course of a gentle afternoon. And we've hardly moved too far from home. I mean, we're only about 2 kilometers as the crow flies from where we live. I'm not sure where Jamie is. Now, this is classic madam behavior, completely tolerant of the others coming to say hello to her. Corky has not been seen being nearly this sort of tolerant of cubs that aren't her own. Now, Cindy in Tennessee, you're saying, would these cubs eat meat even though they are nursing already, or still nursing? Cindy, yes, it's possible. Especially madams, because she will bring food back to the den. She's a dominant female, and so it's highly unlikely that anyone would steal anything from her. But certainly the rest of them will eat meat. If it comes, they will eat it, but they will suckle. Remember, hyena suckles for a long time. A hyena suckles for up to 6 months, which is almost twice as long as any of the other predators. And I think sometimes some of them will try and suckle for up to a year. And they will be at the den for almost a year. So we still sometimes see June here. I don't see her here now, and it's quite interesting. It's one of the first times I've not seen her here when no one else has been around. She might be close by. June, of course, was born in June. So she'll be coming up on her she'll be 10 months old soon. It's getting a little bit dark, so we'll stay with them for a little bit longer, but we're not going to light them up. Now, Barbara, just in case there's any kind of misconception, you want to know how long it takes for them to build a den. Just in case there's a misconception here, they didn't build this den. So this is a termite mound, and I may be stating the obvious, and if I am, I'm sorry about that. But this is a termite mound that was built by termites, and then it would have been opened up by Arathusa, one of whom we found yesterday, and fortunately in a state of putridity or putridness, and it would have opened up one of those holes. And then the hyena cubs would have dug it, and they dig, actually, the mother would have excavated it to a certain extent, then she would have actually given birth into the den. And those youngsters come out with teeth and with claws and with their eyes open, unlike most of the other carnivores. And they would have immediately dug themselves a little shelf on which to lie. And that keeps them safe in the back from any other predator that might come along. And that happens very quickly. So they won't take it long at all to kind of excavate out a hole that an Arathusa has already opened up. Probably less than an hour or two, I suppose. And they'll give birth there, and I'm sure the cubs are probably on top of their little shelves within sort of a few hours of being born. So although very vulnerable when they're young, they're not anything like as altricial as, say, the leopard or lion cubs are. You can see how dark it's getting now. Eric Moore, you say you have heard that or read that hyenas suckle their cubs for so long because it takes that length of time for the immense jaw bones that they have to develop to the extent that they're able to eat meat and bone. I think that's probably got something to do with it, Eric. I suspect it's slightly more complicated than that. Excuse me. Excuse me. There we go. Eric, I think that you will find that it has something to do with the brain size and the complex nature of the social interactions that happen with hyenas. And so a bit like human beings, they suckle for slightly longer than would other animals of similar mass. They have a very complex social structure which indicates a certain level of brain development that doesn't occur in many other animals. Then I think you will find it's just a strategy that's worked, Eric. It's much easier for them to carry nutrients in the milk than it is to try and bring food back to the den. They don't regurgitate like wild dogs do, so it's not like they can carry meat back here without actually dragging a carcass. So what I think you'll find is that the safety of the den outweighs the disadvantage of having to bring food back here in the form of milk, and I think that's probably a more accurate reason for why they would be suckling for as long as they do. I don't see why their jaws should take any longer than a lion or a leopard's jaws to develop, especially as they're born so much more altricial, or precocial, sorry. Very quiet evening at the moment, not much singing of birds, but just very peaceful, and the heat, thankfully, mercifully, starting to dissipate. Darlene in New Hampshire, nice question. Nice because I'm not sure that I can answer it. You say you've read that the giggle, or that kind of... Oh, there's something behind us, Brian. Just thought I heard a sound. I think it's just a bird. I think it's a redback shrike calling. Darlene, you say that you've read that giggling thing is a sign of submission, and that only hyenas that are submissive will come and do it, and what it results in is a kind of a relaxation of the dominance hierarchy, and shows a dominant female that the subordinate acknowledges that subordination. It could well be. Yeah, Darlene, I mean, I've spent so little time actually studying hyenas before I came here, and now that I think of it, it only tends to happen when cubs or subordinates go around slightly more dominant ones. So yeah, it could well be that is the case. They do make a form of it, though, at a kill. when they're trying to G each other up and steal some meat, they will make a sort of the form of that giggling sound. All right, everybody, we're going to leave these guys. It's starting to get a bit dark now. I know that every evening we have to leave them slightly earlier. But while we get out of here, let's head across to Jamie and find out what she's got as the night starts to fall.
As night starts to fall, it's time to bring out the spotlight and use it to illuminate whatever animals happen to be wandering about in the darkness. There's always this incredible sense of excitement that I think most of us feel as night starts to fall. Part of that is an evolutionary instinct, a sort of a natural disquiet, the feeling that you should be indoors and safe, and that of course is because we're not adapted to be a nocturnal predator or a nocturnal animal at all. But there's also the excitement of knowing that the bush is going to have all kinds of weird and wonderful things happen in the darkness. And there's always the chance of seeing some of the more unusual animals, something like a genet, for example, or a civet, one of the rarer nocturnal species, or a porcupine or an aardvark or any of those. But what we're using the spotlight for is to bounce it off the layer at the back of the eye known as the tapetum lucidum. Now, a lot of people will tell you about how herbivores' eyes, so diurnal animals' eyes, reflect green back at you. My personal experience is that is not the case. It just depends on the angle that you hit the animal's eye at. And of course, with predator species, their eyes are forward spacing, whereas with prey species, their eyes are on the side to give them the widest possible peripheral vision. They can see threats approaching from either side of them. And that just means that the light hits them at slightly different angles. Also, the daytime animals, the diurnal animals, are not adapted for moving around at night. They generally try to stick in one spot as much as possible, doze on occasion. So you'll see impala herds regularly will be lying, half of them will be lying down, the rest of them will be standing, keeping a watchful eye and ear and nose out for any sign of attack, and then swap around so that they have a chance to rest. For the animals out here, there's no real long sleep period, it's just a time to doze. We don't shine too much on the diurnal species, so our daytime animals, because they're not adapted to deal with that level of light at night. It actually blinds them in the end. Not permanently, but it will take away their night vision. James Taylor is wanting to see, speaking of diurnal animals, he was once saying he hopes to see the wildebeest again soon, and it feels as though we don't see them much anymore. That's actually a really good point. I was thinking that earlier today. I haven't seen that wildebeest herd in a long time. The last time I saw them, they were doing a mad dash onto Buffelshoek, away from the Nkuhuma ladies. Maybe they've just decided to stay there for now. They might have discovered a nice grazing area. The calves are nice and big now, so they are capable of covering nice large distances. When we last saw them, they were already starting to get their horns. But just to finish off the topic of the spotlight and what we use it for, I always used to tell my guests to think of using their eyes during the day like they would use a spotlight at night. So when we shine it, we do it fairly rapidly because you kind of want to cover as much distance as possible, because if I spend too long doing this, I'm going to miss whatever's on my right. You try and check the open spaces as clearly as possible, up the big trees, checking for chameleons all the time, checking down roads. The reason I say that they should use their eyes like that is very often if people are specifically looking for something in particular, let's say they only want to see a leopard, they will turn every bush and log, and I know I do it sometimes if I'm out looking for a particular animal. Every termite mound starts to look like a leopard, every log looks like a leopard. And you end up stopping regularly, but But you don't need to focus so hard. You actually need to let your brain relax into it, just like you are waiting for eyes to reflect back at you. Because your brain is geared to pick up on the shapes of animals. If you relax it and let sort of go back to your instinctive feeling, you're more likely to spot something. Particularly, of course, if it moves. One of the things I always tried to teach my guests was not to over-focus on one thing. One animal I'm really aiming for, though it's still too hot, I would say, you never know, never say never. There's a drought and strange things happen in droughts. One animal I'm aiming to get within the next few months is an aardvark. I still haven't seen one, not even the dead one that James saw, because I went back this morning and it was already fully consumed. So I would like to see a live one. I haven't even managed to see a dead one, as James did yesterday. So yes, I would like to see a live aardvark. That is my goal for the next few months. And as it starts to get cooler, we're going to see more and more of them. I'm already noticing, okay, maybe not so much in the last 2 days, but I'm already noticing a huge difference in temperature in the mornings. There's a coolness to the air that bodes heavily for the beginning of winter. South Africa doesn't really have 4 seasons. We have 2, with a sort of a short transition period in between. We've got hot and we've got cold and we've got dry and we've got wet, essentially. Looking as well for the little pearl-spotted owlets that live on this road. Like today, a quiet afternoon is actually really peaceful and relaxing. To be out and just enjoy driving through the bush. You have to work hard for sightings. You can't always just get lucky with them. And unfortunately, the lions this afternoon didn't pay off. But tomorrow is another day, and I'm sure they will. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, they're still going to be in the area. Maybe even coming down to Djuma for a drink, or across to Gallagher. We did find the rest, or at least one of the other guides, just by the way, speaking of the lions, did actually find the rest of the buffalo herd on Philemon's cut line, so not too far south of where we saw those lone females. When you see scattered buffalo like that, you automatically think that they may have been chased at some point by lions. But Eric, who is watching in Dallas, was wondering, would a leopard be a threat to buffalo, or are they too large? And Eric, there are a couple of recorded cases of leopards going for buffalo calves. It's not that common. We've seen how defensive buffalo can actually be when faced even with a predator as large as a lion. A leopard would have to choose its moment exceptionally carefully, but it has been known to occur, particularly when females go off on their own to give birth, at which point they are exhausted and their calf is obviously still wobbly and vulnerable. So it is a possibility, but once they get past a certain size and within a herd, they're most likely going to be safe from leopards. But bear in mind, of course, Eric, that some large male leopards have been recorded taking down prey as large as a young giraffe, which is easily the weight of a buffalo and much taller. Not a big buffalo, but a smallish buffalo. So in that respect, in nature, you never say never. I've even seen a cheetah have a go at a buffalo calf, but that was exceptionally unusual circumstances. I James has left the hyena den, but apparently met up with another hyena, so let's go and have a look.
Now this is a young hyena, I think, or a small male. Now we're actually exactly opposite where the kill was in the tree from, we think, Djuma. So a little while back, almost a week ago now, we found a kill in a tree. Well, Steph found it purely by nose because it was starting to rot, and it seemed to have been abandoned. And it was right around here that we found a small hyena like this the next morning. And I wonder what it's doing here now. There doesn't seem to be any meat around, but it might be worth just doing a little bit of a turn through here, just to see if there isn't something that it's waiting for. A hyena is one of the most patient animals you'll ever find. And if a leopard has got a tree, eventually it becomes either so rotten that it falls out, or the leopard makes a mistake and drops a piece. That's why it was so unusual for me to see, to hear that Karula had her cubs around where she had her last kill, because there were hyenas all over the place. It was rotting and smelling, and why she would have brought them into that kind of precariously dangerous position, I just can't imagine. Anyway, she knows best, I hope. Just going to drive onto the cut line here. We're right on the northern boundary. Hi Ken, you're tweeting to us and you want to know if a hyena might attack a human being. Ken, the kind of rule of thumb is if you're standing on your own 2 feet and it's in the middle of the day, a hyena won't come near you. If you're lying on your back at night and say you leave your tent open, then a hyena is likely to do quite a lot of damage. So, in fact, I mean, that's when hyenas have killed people, is when they leave their tents open, they go camping in wildlife areas, hyenas come into their tents and take them out. So that does happen from time to time, but in the day, on foot, no, highly unlikely. I've seen many, many hyenas on foot. I've never been charged by one, but I have had an experience, like I mentioned just now, with a hyena that kind of stood behind the bush and watched me come, and I had to clap and make a noise before she'd move off. It was in the tree that there was the kill. We've just kind of done a 180-degree spotlight. You can see is going to spot something about 2.5 meters off the road. But I don't see any leopard's eyes, and I think this kill was abandoned. So it's interesting that this hyena should still be here. Anyway, we're going to turn on and continue on the route that we were going to do, which was Mvubu Road. And Mvubu Road will lead us back to the Djuma Dam. And we'll just check if some predator hasn't popped out to have a drink. Maybe those lions, those mysterious lions, have disappeared. I suspect quite strongly, given the amount of activity in the block where I thought those lions were, that they somehow crossed a road without us noticing. It's not unlikely, given the number of elephants that have been around. I mean, if that many elephants, you're not going to see a lion track. If the pride crosses in one line across a road, you're not going to see them. So I wonder if that isn't what happened. There's a little scrub here. Doesn't think he's been spotted because the spotlight isn't particularly bright. I think a scrub hare, rather like an impala, is an extremely underrated creature. It's obviously long hair-like ears and nocturnal, which differentiates it from a rabbit. They make the most horrendous screaming noise if they're caught. And that, of course, is a response to, or it's an evolutionary adaptation to help them startle predators, and I suspect they get away from quite a lot of them because of the noise they make. So we're going to go just up the other side of this hill and down the other, and then we'll turn south again, hoping perhaps to find sign of a leopard. Let's go across to Jamie while our signal's a bit dodgy, and we'll see you at the dam.
James, I was just thinking about other interesting aspects about spotlighting. And this afternoon, Liam and I decided we'd just pop up towards Buffelshoek Dam and look for that shy male leopard that's been nicknamed Djuma by, I think it was initially started out by one of the Buffelshoek landowners, that particular name, because he Djumas, or he runs away from vehicles. But he has been seen at night, and interestingly enough, you'll find this with a lot of skittish leopards. They're a lot more confident when you sit and watch them with the spotlight. And I think it's got less to do probably with the spotlight than it has to do with the fact that they're just in general probably more comfortable at night. It's when they feel safest. They know that they've got superior nighttime vision. It is something interesting, and it was something that we experienced when I went to go and visit Brent's parents as well, on a little reserve close to Hoedspruit. And they've also, the leopards on that reserve are also fairly skittish during the day, but at night you can sit and observe them almost in the same way you can most of the Sabi Sands leopards, maybe with a little bit more distance between you. It is fascinating that that is the approach that they have adopted. Ooh, gotta go quickly. Don't jump, don't jump, don't jump, don't jump. You see him there, Wildy? Well done. Hello, little bush baby. Bobbing his head up and down to have a look at us. So cute. They really are one of the cutest things. Where did he go? Oh, there he is. What happened to that tree? There he goes. Bobbing up and down. Next jump. Oh, that was a big one. Oh, he's down there. There he goes. He's coming closer. He's after that moth. Now he's on the ground. Now he's back up again. Going after a moth. Oh, he's on the ground again. And he's up in the tree again. Here he goes, there he goes, there he goes. Oh, went into the marula tree. I'll have to switch on and try and keep an eye on him at the same time. Where's he gonna go? He's gonna cross the road. Oh. That was awesome. There he is. Whee! That was a flying leap and onto the dead tree. And now onto that tree, keeping VM very busy. Where did he go now? I lost him. Oh no. Let's go forward a little bit. That was very cool. Oh, I think I might have lost him when he jumped down from here. Whoops, better watch the road. Where did he go? Let me just switch off for a second. I think I missed him. I think he moved off the tree, just out of my field of view, and to the back there. But bravo to VM for managing to keep up with that. That was incredible. That, ladies and gentlemen, if it was your first time, that was a lesser galago, or a bush baby. That was actually so cool. So the smallest little primate, called bush babies because their cry actually sounds like a baby, more so with the greater galago than with the lesser galago. We had one in camp the other day, and I think both James and myself have mentioned this, but it fell out of a tree onto the ground and then slowly crawled its way back up. But VM was just telling me the most interesting story. Apparently he saw a monkey actually catch a lesser bush baby, which I have never seen. That is a really unusual sighting, but awesome stuff to hear. Now, when I was staying up in Pafuri over my birthday weekend, when I was on leave, we actually had sort of sleeping up on a tent on top of a platform, so almost like a tree house. And at about 4 o'clock in the morning, it's been a long time since I've heard a greater galago or a greater bush baby call. And this thing screeched next to my ear. I promise you, I nearly levitated out of bed and to the opposite wall. It sounds just like a baby, which in sort of the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a tent, is the last thing that you expect. It goes, wah! It's an awful sound, actually. But yes, that was the larger cousin of the bush baby that we just saw. That was very cool. Chasing moths. I thought I'd found it again, but it's a nightjar. Also one of the nocturnal species that we see fairly regularly. I'm going to stop so you can have a look at him. I'm thinking it's a fiery-necked nightjar. They are very tricky to tell the difference between, particularly when they're crunched up like that, sitting on the road. The reason that they love sitting on road areas is that it's nice and open, and it's nice and warm, so it attracts insects at night. And they are perfectly designed insect catchers. They've got an enormous, what's known as a gape. So the extent that they can open their mouths, yeah, that looks like a fiery-necked nightjar. Do you see the sort of the fiery neck at the back there? Wonderful little birds. Off he goes. I was about to say to you that I'm going to turn my lights off him and let him head off. And before I start the engine, I'm actually going to say farewell to you for this evening's drive. A big thank you, as always, to VM for his fantastic camera work, and a really big well done for managing to stay with that bush baby, as well as a big thank you to Mr. Henry and Brian for providing you with the wonderful images that you've enjoyed this evening. And as always, a thank you to you, the viewers, for jumping on the back of the largest safari vehicle on Earth. We will see you tomorrow morning for the sunrise safari, hopefully with those lions, because I'm feeling fairly determined at this point. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you tomorrow morning. Cheers for now.
We're just doing one final sort of foray onto quarantine clearings, see if anything has popped out there. Maybe those lions are going to pop down. If you are around the Djuma Dam pan, well, obviously none of you are actually around it, but if you're going to watch it or leave it on in the corner of your screen during the course of our evening, I think you might be lucky with those lions. I think it's been a hot day. I think they've had nothing to eat. Well, they may have eaten. I'm not sure, but I think they're going to seek out water during the course of the night. So keep watching there. I think you might be lucky. Lots and lots of impala out on the clearings. They've all materialized out of the thickets, trying desperately to see if anything's going to bite them during the course of the night. Not much for them to eat. They would ordinarily want to be on a grassy clearing that offers them something to eat. Some of these younger impala are a bit nervy around the lights. The older ones don't mind much. There are hundreds of them here, hundreds. We can't shine on them, of course, but you'll get a vague idea. They've got the dim sort of floodlight on them. I'll lift it up a bit. There you go. That was very helpful, wasn't it, Brian? Yeah, it was really showed as a lighting expert. Brilliant. It's so nice to be a genius, Brian. Right, we're going to stop over here. Look, Brian, I'm taking your advice, stopping behind this bush here. Now, thank you, everybody, for your questions and comments. I had the most wonderful time with those elephants, a little bit with the hyenas, but best elephant sighting I think I've had. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, Kirsten and Geraldine Cheesecake Kent in the final control. A big thank you also to Jamie and VM. We will see you all tomorrow at 05:30 in the glory of the African dawn. Bye-bye.